if you watch Downton Abbey, you'll see that most of the characters and the actors, they didn't have a hunch, but they've got a palsied left eye. Yeah, you should have a look at it, watch a couple of episodes and realise that God is the ultimate judge of the human condition. Okay, all through the cast they've got the palsy in the left eye. Okay, Stalin's left hand was withered, and what I'm going to tell you about is something that has saddened me slightly, but it needs to be outed because I've got all the data on my computer, and if I get taken out with it undeclared about what has upset me so much since I woke up at 5:30 this morning, I'm going to take you to the other room and tell you a little story. I need to apologise. You know the song about the American idiots? I could play a little bit about it, but I don't want it to be too insulting to them. I had a colleague at Otago University, and his name was Carr. And I said, Stephen, he's an associate professor in the University of Otago Department of Pharmacology, and the man was good enough to take me fishing, and when he took me fishing in New Zealand, I could not refuse the job as the chair in the pharmacology department. The fishing is magnificent. The country is unspoilt, but it is totally despoiled by people from this environment. Okay? It's a tradition that they just get enslaved. But the American proclaimed that his name, which was spelt K-E-R-R, like many borderers that I know, since I discovered this we've had a lot of sunshine, like lots of borderers that I know who went just to ordinary schools, at state schools, and they pronounce the word car spelt K-E-R-R. We've got many people in our region with K-E-R-R, and a lot of the profiles for the people with K-E-R-R are in the aristocratic sector. At least I thought that until this morning. But because they went to public school, and because they realise that they have a master of fraud research living right on their doorstep now, yeah, in the stock market and in the business register for the country, the spelling of the people that I am the feudal serf to has dropped an R, and it could well be pronounced differently for reputational reasons. Being big on the business register is not something that I've really been lit up by, but I want you to tell you how I found out that the Duke of Roxburgh's name in the business records and all of his family members is spelt K-E-R. And I discovered that because I was researching with other amateur journalists who participate in research unfunded, and what they had told me was that they published the research in a journal. Now I'm going to take you next door and show you what that journal is, and I've just been playing Avril Lavigne's Complicated, because everything in our life is complicated by the very often abused citizenship who are used to being the serfs for the feudal landlords. And I need to tell you a sad story about the Duke of Roxburgh and his factors. We've mentioned in a couple of videos, one on Klaus Moser and the Santa Claus Moses jokes about religion. John Patterson and I have disclosed that I forgot what I was going to tell you. John Patterson and I have disclosed with Gordon Bowden that a family in this region called Stormouth Darling are financial criminals in the businesses running Lothian Road, which are deliberately structured to asset strip the pension funds, and we've got a real estate business run by a Stormouth Darling in our town. Now I want to say to that family that I appreciate that they were the factors to the Duke of Roxburgh, and that one of their family died in one of the great conflicts. He's on the war memorial as part of the war dead. He's one of the few officers that are listed on the war memorial. The statistics in St Giles Cathedral, you can look up St Giles Cathedral and George Lees's YouTube videos and you will see the horror that is the Scottish regiments. The number of privates, the non-officer classes, yeah, the people that laugh at the zebra joke perpetrated by the Rothschilds who send them to war in the first place, they are killed in, I think it was round about 4,800 people on the war memorial for, I think, the Scots Fusiliers, and there are dozens and dozens of regimental war memorials all along the wall telling the same sad story. But Stormouth Darling is the factor to the Duke of Roxburgh for a long time. The Duke of Roxburgh has a separate burial ground from all of the other citizens in our town, and the factors, the Stormouth Darlings, were buried in the same graves. Because of the potency of my research on those frauds and the defamation of the Stormouth Darling name, I don't think Peter Stormouth Darling is even associated with the local border town, but the links to the LSD concept and the Chancellor in London and the Chancellor making his budget for Her Royal Highness and the illegitimacy of the royal throne. Let me get you up some images now. It's not a secret what my password is. Any of the surveillance team can get into my computers, as we found out 2 days ago when they crashed the video on my trip to Edinburgh, where Nicola Sturgeon locked the building so I could not go in and talk to her. Okay? Right then, so I'm in touch with a woman who approached me because she admires my videos, and my videos on fraud are the most potent videos. That is fraud in religion, 2,000-year-old genocidal fraud. That is fraud in financial services, very modernised nowadays, and the old money men that I'm going to talk about are much more innocent than the people in the HSBC building, but they interlock to them, which is what I'm going to reveal to you later on. Okay, so the people that I'm talking to, and they told me horrific stories about the food bank and how that food bank was linked to franchises and paying fees to the local council. Everything that you get from the franchise is the bags with the labels on it, and if the churches were to do it for themselves, for their local parishioners, and they were to celebrate the deaths of the local parishioners and name them, the people that died in those great conflicts, then Stormouth Darling would be a family name that is admired in this region. Instead, they try and cover up the sins by persecuting the factor, and they let the man who beats the drum go unscathed. Now, the Duke of Roxburgh is relatively innocent. I know that from the weather patterns we get in our town. When you look at the weather patterns and the statistics for his estate here, and you look at his behaviours in this historical region, you can see that the man leaves other people alone as much as he can. I've met him a couple of times. He's promised me some time to talk, and I might get that after I make this video. But if he makes a speech at my funeral, I want you to ask some questions about local law enforcement and the enslavement of the whole of our region by the feudal methodology that, with the education that we now have, we have no need for. But Stormouth Darling, maybe 15 years ago, they persecuted a man called Penman, and they've raised the same man's name as they engage in this scandal of our disclosure of their frauds blighting the pensions in Lothian Road. Okay, that's just one man. I arbitrarily picked him, and we have denounced the Dukes and Duchesses for running the fishing on the river, and then as soon as we denounced them, they changed their activities on the river from its ownership to water quality and surveilling that. Okay, I'm talking about this for my own safety because the vent that are used by my friends in Scotland, 2 girls actually, quite unique. All of the people that have been introduced to me on Skype have been in the male gender except for Jacqueline Chang, and when I realised that Jacqueline Chang is an entrepreneurial presence on Company Check, all of the male members who introduced me to them, I lost their friendship. Okay, and so what we've got here is a massive team of slaves and people that are prepared to talk about minor issues when the feudal landlords still literally get away with massive cons against the people. And the con is a very appropriate label now. You're beginning to understand it more and more. It's associated with the Conservative Party crimes and the connies. That is the rabbits and the Nazis that profiteered in World War II. And one of the female members of the Duke of Roxburgh's bloodline is directly related. I think she's either the sister or the cousin of Winston Churchill, the profiteer with the Flemings through all of that period. But that woman is relatively decent. On the original Bloody Sunday, when there was a huge massacre in Ireland during World War I, yeah, that the whole of the Queen's household went on strike about the Irish people protesting about being conscripted into World War I. But that woman, who was the Duke's wife, she launched the Mauritania. I forget which wife it was and which Duke it was by numbers. The current Duke is number 10 and his son, his eldest son, is number 11. His eldest son Charlie, I'm led to believe, was married for a time into the Aitken dynasty. That is the Aitkins that I denounce in every video. The Duke is decent, and especially since the Duke knows I'm honest and potent, he's become more and more decent. I met him in London when he was having his first child by his second wife, an American, and he immediately accused me of being a pressman. And I said, no, I just work here in this place where your birth has taken place, in this hospital. I'm employed as an academic, and I'm an associate professor here, like Mr. Carr in New Zealand, the American idiot. Okay, but he knows better than me, and the way that the public school boys, like the Duke, spell their names is entirely to manipulate their profile in the public eye. Okay, that comes up again and again and again. The incapacity to identify yourself as someone who can be approached in the street or sent a letter to on Company Check is amazing. So I discovered the businesses of the Duke of Roxburgh and his relatives by going to the directorate at Our Kingdom, where the freelance journalists in Scotland who get paid nothing to write articles about justice and liberty, yeah, they then declare that I've not heard from them since we talked on Friday night about the food bank and scandalous issues like that. There were no really big businesses or anything with hundreds of millions at the bank. That changed when I went to the ownership team for Our Kingdom, their colleagues in the amateur journalist to free the kingdom. Yet the concept that you can have a free kingdom with illegitimate monarchs in place for 160 years is bizarre. That's why I'm making the video this afternoon, before I end up dangling on the end of a rope, or I am disemboweled like William Wallace, if William Wallace ever actually existed. He was killed at the Torah Wood, and I've told you about all of the writing of Shakespeare's history and all of the rewriting to suit the crimes and murders and rapes involving royal families like Prince Eddie, who ended up ending his life and spending the whole of his life after the Jack the Ripper murders in Glamis Castle. Yeah, the Macbeth story. The blood was on his hands, not on Lady Macbeth's. The females just play the prostitution role, and I'm not saying that about these women that have introduced me to it. They may not be savvy enough to see through Our Kingdom. I'm a very experienced fraud researcher. They may be relatively innocent, and one of them has a name. I will not tell you their names, just in case they are innocent, and this video will make it almost an obligation to become much more innocent if they were trying to con me into believing that this newspaper is genuine. It is just the slaves working on behalf of the world's owners. Okay? And I've told you the story about Dell Boy books. It's owned by the people that I'm going to tell you about here. Okay? So I scanned down this, and a lot of the people that are involved, that's Nikki Seth Smith, Oliver Wheatson, Claire Sambrook. Now I remember the Sambrook name. I think it's something to do with sporting merchandise. And the most common name of all is the one that I found. Yeah? And that is this one. That's Anthony Barnett. And look at his picture. He's a dead ringer for Tim Spicer. It's really useful. If that is Tim Spicer, it does not surprise me at all. Tim Spicer is the man, the mercenary army leader behind the Trident scam. Nobody will talk about the Trident scam. This lot will not publish it, although the girls might be able to help me now that I've put them in a slightly compromised position as being traitors to that concept. Okay? But let's not shed blame. I want everybody talking to me. I want everybody taking society back to decency and the capacity to make our children not necessarily filthy rich, but just to earn a living in their own country without being driven into programs abroad and without being picked for their capacity to steal. Okay? Stuart White, Jamie Mackay, and these are editors of different outlets. Editors of Democratic Wealth, Building a Citizen's Economy, Rebirth of the Nation. Let's see what Anthony Barnett is. Oh no, he's actually tied to the Our Kingdom team. Okay? And that makes a logical explanation for why he looks just like Tim Spicer. I've told you about them using the names of celebrities and people in other sectors of life to cover up every crime and fraud that they commit. Okay, so these are other editors, and that's David Krivanik at the bottom, Drifting Apart, Where to for Europe and Britain. Okay, so I look this guy up, and what do I find? He's interlocked to huge numbers of people, and one of them is my feudal landlords. Okay, with one R. And when I see that, I instantly open it up and I have a wee look. Okay, and this is one of the girls. I think it's Katharina Christina Mary Innes Kerr, company number 912-955-482, registered address Capitol House, Pride Place, Pride Park, Derby, where Gordon Bowden fell out with me when I tried to go too far up the food chain. Gordon Bowden pretends to have fallen out with the head of the Labour Party. Gordon Bowden pretends also to have fallen out with his MPs, and every time I wanted to talk about the Dukes and Duchesses and the monarchy involvement and the Rothschilds' manipulation of all of those sectors, Gordon did not want to do that. He went back to Andrea Davidson, who's a friend of Sonia Poulton's, and Sonia Poulton acknowledges that she understands all of Nadim Zahawi's profiteering crimes out of the House of Commons, but she's unprepared to talk about that. But she pretends that the Queen is a tyrant and she would cut her head off. How twisted is all of that? Okay, so the first thing I find is on the interlocks, Nick Clegg and Alexander, I forget what his name is. He was the treasurer, I think. He's in the Treasury office on the cabinet with Michael Moore, also a Lib Dem. So that's Nick Clegg, Alexander Sandy, interlocking with the Innes Kerrs. Okay, and then when you look at the websites for these companies, you find all of the explanations to things that have drawn the investigative journalists in, and things that we talked about with those two girls the other night. One of them involves a man called Algie Clough. Now if you go to my Facebook page, I've exposed the crimes of Algie Clough. And Algie Clough is a fraudster
with virtual products scams. Gordon and Peter Eyre have revealed all of those. The cover of Algae Clough is for a man called Luff in the interlocks with the Dukes and Duchesses, the Hambros and all of the massive financial names, the goldsmiths, all of them are interlocked to the Duke and his innocent family. The children get sent into that sector because now they know that with the corrupted law enforcement that that John Patterson and I were trying to protect, because they do not want English speaking public school boys to be able to get jobs in a local police force. Yeah, they want to give those jobs to people from distant continents, so that if there is a cull again and Stephen House gets his way and gets his automatic weapons, then the innocents just get shot down, as they were in the 1930s, 1940s. And then after Europe became a peace prize winner because it was unwilling to persecute itself, they turned their guns on all of the other continents across the globe. Okay, so that is, I forget the name of the Alexander character, but I could go down and find him for you in there. And so this is just the interlocks to that man that runs the Kingdom paper. Okay, and the other names, the reference to Sandy there is that there's a woman in Aberdeen. That's where the burning pit is supposed to be, about hell and its location. But because all of the stories about the devil and hell and heaven were written by humans, then you have to take it all with a pinch of salt. But Emily Sandy is a singer. She's a black girl and she sings lovely songs. I've got most of them on my YouTube listings. She sings one about being her clown, and it looks as if she's being persecuted by people in sort of anonymous army uniforms, and she's being interrogated by them. She's being asked to sign her soul away. There's the Sandys are spelt differently, but all of them interlock to the Innis Kerrs, and the other interlocks to Clegg, Nick Clegg, head of the Lib Dems, on the football profiteering boards under a different name, with Princess Anne Lawrence, the petty thief and the patron at Scottish Rugby. This afternoon we're playing Wales. I don't give a monkeys about it now. The whole lot of the sporting tournaments are just covers, and when I now open the videos that are particularly poignant, and now that we've revealed the role of the Cockneys in the jester's hat in the future of Paris, which led to the false news Paris terror, the Church of Scotland this morning are back to demonise Islam, and I asked the preacher, who's a lay preacher, whether or not he gets his orders from the centre of the Church of Scotland and he's obligated to demonise Islam. He said, no, I do it myself. And I said to him on the way out that you must know that it is the G8 that demonise the other countries entirely, so we control them and profit from them. And he sort of agreed with it, but he was ever so reluctant. But the sun has been pouring out all day since I discovered the nature of the enslavement of all of our local people. I do not want to denounce the Duke. They tell me, as I talk to all of the local people, the Dukes of Northumberland have sent dozens of people into my town to keep an eye on my campaign. I don't want independence for Scotland. I want freedom for the whole of Britain. And the Dukes of Northumberland and the Duke of Roxburgh can play a massive part in this if they stop laughing at the poor people and start giving them a chance to get a life. Yeah, it is still a feudal system. And let me take you to some of the other web pages that I've got open. So there's the Our Kingdom people, and there's the man that I found on, and he's strikingly like Tim Spicer. I could find a picture of Tim Spicer now for you. That's Tim Spicer, who's a director after he had been a mercenary army leader in sub-Saharan Africa, where Prince Philip master plans all of the land grabs all over that continent using people like Tim Spicer. This could be a genuine Anthony Barnett. and he's definitely got a registration on the company check, because it was the paper I looked up, and it was the directors for the paper and the owners. And guess what I found? I found a Stevenson, but it's spelt differently to this one. Yeah, but since I told the girls that I'd found a Stevenson and that I might need to establish their innocence before I made a video with them, none of them have gotten in touch with me again. The name of the second one is a name that is associated with slaying the dragon that terrorised the Borders people, which is why I was kind of drawn to her. It's romantic. It's romantic to think that it's a legend in this region, like the Duke of Roxburgh. The Duke of Roxburgh is a blessedly productive employer for the region, and all of his registered companies are relatively innocent. It's just race horses, but the interlocks are right into the heart of the financial and tyrannical criminal sector. That's where Danny Alexander and Nick Clegg reside. Okay, the names of the interlocking people, I'm going to have to make several videos to expose this completely, yeah, and that will put more and more onus on the appropriate authorities being able to make me safe. This is Sir Paul Stevenson, who was the head of the London Police Force until 2011. He's the one that bailed out for selling the phone numbers to Rebecca Brooks and Andy Coulson, the intel experts and the fraud experts who were remunerated by Levison, who's related to the Duchess of Sutherland, who lives right next door to the Duke of Roxburgh in the St Boswell's region, where David Murray's golf course is. All of them are running the Freemasonic network, and Alistair Hutton, the boss at the local British Legion, was back in the church today. He was limping a bit a couple of weeks ago. They've had some rehabilitation and they're demonising Islam again. It was not him who made the speech. Yeah, the man who made the speech, I've seen him running on the pavements. He's in turmoil because he's watching my videos, he's seeing what is happening to the people who stand in my way, and he's flirting with bringing forward all of the bombastic stuff to put down the researcher who's more informed about the pathology theory than anybody else on the globe. Yeah, I don't know where this guy came from, but he's the one that sold the secrets. Within days of that blowing its cover, he had resigned from the Met Police Force. I don't know what he does now, but I'll find out more about him in the next fortnight if they let me live that long. Okay, and wow, so there's his profile, in office as the Commissioner from 2009 to 2011. That's under Sir Ian Blair. He was preceded him and was succeeded by Bernard Hogan Howe. Yeah, and before them came Lord Condon, who's now the head of the G4S company, who are undermining all of the police jobs, which is the video that we made 2 videos back, or the last video I made before this one. Yeah, it's about G4S asset stripping the whole of British policing and replacing it by an international cabal, and we found 135 Ponzi shelves for that company on the British Business Register. Okay, and I could show you where I found that, but this is just a reference from Wikipedia. But we've got the interlocks to Stevenson here, and the Stevenson word is spelt the other way. Yeah, there is no way that I can prove that that is the former police commissioner. And what you've got are links to the universities that I've talked about, where the Argentinian or Chilean refugees came from, fleeing from Pinochet, call me comrade, but their husbands are in the economic sector. That's how the peer pressure works. and the people that run Dell Boy books are also on these list of registered companies. Okay, that's the boy Dell joke. Okay, yeah, it's almost as if God wakes me up with all of the appropriate facts waiting to be entered into the search engine, and when I find the people that, you know, that are supposedly trying to save the kingdom from the fraud, it is quite saddening that no one I talk to, with the possible exception of John Patterson, are actually genuinely involved in research. They know that I'm much more potent than them, which is why they've joined me, but you know, it is indefensible that they are pretending to be innocents, and what they're doing is shielding the financial criminals that have everybody else's job prospects compromised. Okay, what else have we got? So the interlocks, because company check has been fiddled with since I started to develop my website. When you put down what used to be graphs and lists, it just becomes an endless list of names. Okay, but this lot are interlocked to, I'm old enough to remember Castrol oil being sold, and I told you last week about the Burma Oil Company and Mrs. Thatcher's husband Dennis being a director on it. All of these people are directors on all of the Burmese and the Golden Triangle's oil wealth. If there is any, I don't know where the oil comes from that used to be sold by Castro, but there is a BP company, and this is the BP that belongs to the Ineos people and to Lonro and to Prince Charles's financial advisor Christopher Chambers. Do you get the magnitude of it? I'm not telling you anything at this stage about the Duke of Roxburgh's interlocks. That man is relatively innocent. He pretends to be an enemy of the Duke of Northumberland. Their estates almost interlock. Duke of Northumberland's estates are massive. They're in Scotland. And I told you the other day about the new money criminals in the clan sector. Those include, I was telling you about the MacLeods, the MacLeods of Skye, and when you look into the MacLeods of Skye and the links to the Jewish nation and the shofar bugle and all of the links to the fox hunting world, it takes you into the Vestarium. The Vestarium is a register of Scottish clans and their tartans, and that is the reason why Rab C. Nisbet wears a vest, for a laugh. And the colours of the Bruins and Ur Wully annuals that are sold every Christmas are a joke about a man called Wully Black on Skye, who's part of the get your head lopped off if you do not get your timing right within the family. Yeah, and that is the Ur Wully story. Yeah, and the Bruins are a joke about the Brownies and the links to the goblins on the church roof. And to Enid Blyton, whose husband died at 22 in a uniform, like the Storm of Darlin, that gave his life because he's only the factor. The Dukes and Duchesses come out unscathed, but they know that if they allow their children to marry into and stay married to the Aitken Beaverbrook dynasty, that they're going to get a hard time from investigative journalists who are genuine, which is why that marriage is temporarily interrupted. If I get taken out within the next fortnight, they may come back together again. But that is me defaming the Duke. I don't want to do that. I want to talk to him about how we take the country out of this horrible mess. I've talked to his former wife. She is a really decent person. She likes to mix with the ordinary people and befriend them. Last time I saw it was in the supermarket owned by Sainsbury, Britain's richest former politician. Sold his company into these massive toxic debt pools in 2004 when Tony Blair took democracy to war in Iraq and then Afghanistan. Isn't it sad that all of them interlock and the investigative journalists are prepared to shield them and talk about our great nation and restoring its prospects. Okay? Because the computers crashed, it would be better for me to actually read so this is interlocks to Catherine Innes Kerr, and I've got on the other computer next door, where the sun is pouring onto it, all of the registrations for the Innes Kerr families with one R. It's really, really clever that when you go to public school and you share all of those jokes about P.G. Wodehouse and the pan-continental transatlantic scams and people like Algie Clough. Clough is a cover in the virtual fraud sector for luff on these directories. Yeah, it's as subtle as that. Just one letter missing, and it fools me into thinking that the Duke has no interests at all. The Duchess, before they divorced, the really decent one who talks to everybody, was alleged to have had an affair with one of Scotland's most heroic figures, like Princess Diana and the story I told you about the captain of the English rugby team, Will Carling, and MI6 warning him off with a death threat, and the refusal of all of my relatives who used to be really high up the amateur rugby game and were magnificent players and magnificent athletes. They were unprepared to help me with the fraud, fighting, because of the death threat concept. Nick Clegg's missus runs an assassination bureau out of Bruges, which is why the In Bruges film was made, because it makes it look as if they are Irish terrorists. The Irish terror is completely funded out of New Zealand by Peter Williams QC, and he tried to have Greg Hallett murdered, I think 7 or 8 times before he fled from New Zealand on the day the World Cup finals were hosted there. And I forgot to denounce in my sporting frauds, when I talked about Todd Blackadder going from Edinburgh back to Christchurch to be a money launderer, I forgot to mention that Jock Hobbs, he presents the World Cup trophies before he dies this year. I think it was last year he died. Yeah, but like Michael Lina, if you take money from the game, you're in a very perilous position. So Jock Hobbs died relatively young, but for over a decade he was head of the commissioning body and the New Zealand Rugby Union. Okay, he's laundering along with Andy Irvine, Todd Blackadder, and McGeechan, and the links to all of those massive companies, and the selling off of London Scottish for profit, and Gavin Hastings missed that kick right in front of the posts. Anyway, I'm dwelling on old issues, but I want you to know that Mrs. Clegg is not innocent. She's on the able danger list of fraudsters, but Nick is not on it. Oh, and sorry, it was a list of the world's most dangerous and infamous women. Okay, let's see what we can find about Clegg and Alexander. So that's also on the list is the Sandy woman, and I could reel off other names. So there she is, Laura Jane Sandys, yeah, appointed on the board there. I forget which board this is, but because the things collapse, it's much easier if I open the websites directly. And you've got massive companies, European Movement of the United Kingdom, and I don't know if there's any celebrities on there, but the names keep cropping up. Can you see the Corbett name in the middle there? Yeah. It is a total stitch up. Our whole world is run by thieves and cheats, and I don't know what's happened to the innocent people, but if you are out there, please, please, please get in touch with me, and if I uncover something like this, I promise that I will be gentle with you. All that needs to happen to those 2 Scottish ladies is that they get a little bit more sophisticated and deeper in the research, unless they want to take the reputational fallout for being in the cabal. That's the Dragon Slayer and the woman from Ayrshire who knows that the Lennoxes come from Aberdeen. and that they are evil. That's Annie Lennox, the millionaire who profits as an advisor to the Scottish Government about asset stripping Africa. And then they introduce the Ebola stuff to cover up all of their crimes and all of their shame. Okay, I think that's all of those. So I couldn't find anything on the Sambrook. There is one Sambrook, but she looks relatively innocent in a place called Walsall. And the Sambrook editor could be that person, but the spelling of Clare is different on the register for the directors of the news sheet. It's C-L-A-R-E. Okay, that's how they do it. There are no laws, there are no rules. If your webmaster is told to, they will crash what was a magnificent set of graphs on your corporate history with the thin blue lines and the periods of service shown graphically and the hyperlinks to each of the directors so that you can investigate them one by one. You can't do that now because the webmaster is told to do by the boss, and the boss at Company Check is Alistair Campbell. And when they need a fraudulent boss on the companies that I've exposed, like the Tweed Foundation, they give the job to John Smith because it's the most common name in the English language. And if you're German and you're interlocked in war crimes and profiteering from silk stockings or weapons trading like the Beaverbrook dynasty, that's the Aitkins, or you're compromised by some fraud involving Bernie Ecclestone in Formula 1, then you just use a fraudulent name, or you put a fraudulent initial into your name and you can get away scot-free. And it's the heads of the Metropolitan Police that are the diversionary tools. None of them are interested at all in crime investigation as long as they have got their fund in the havens. Yeah, we've listed now almost 7 or 8 former police commissioners in a very tiny period of time. Lord Stevens of Kirkwelpington, right next door to the Duke of Roxburgh's rivals, both the Palsies and the other family that live there. The Palsies are Perseus from the Roman court. These links are ancient. Yeah, and the other family, I forget the name of them, but there's all sorts of interlocked families. So the name, the use of the vestarium concept and Rabsy Nisbet prancing around in the vest pretending that he's a freedom fighter and he's an ordinary working man. He's actually a border, he's not a Glaswegian at all. But the vestarium joke leads to the launch of the Vesti Company, and they have got right up next to the Orkneys and the Norse nations that are the owners of Skye, the MacLeods. They go back into the Norse dynasties. Okay, the Vesties are a joke about the vestarium, and they are relatively new money men, but they are traitors in wartime, and they flounce off with their meat industry where they make shoes, they make suits, leather, everything that you can make from a cow and all its body parts using those kosher methods. Yeah, they have twice deserted Britain in wartime, and as soon as they come back they get their knighthoods like the people who crashed the banks in 2008. Let's go to the other room. This is what I used to do. It's futile. All of those societies have been stitched up. Yeah, all of them are now led by people from other sectors of life, and everybody that has to pay for the right to work has to pay for the right to work because of the shipment scandal involving the medics, involving the pharmacists. Yeah, and the shipment scandal is just a cover up for the war correspondent for Iraq. Aren't they clever in cheating, stealing from and killing their people? It's getting slightly gusty outside, but the clouds are AWOL. Right.
So let me just see if I can get this computer set up and we can see some of the companies that I've lined up for you. If your factor or your managers pass this video on to you, Duke of Roxburgh, I want to meet you. I know you're a decent cove, and that is all it takes. My references to the Remains of the Day film and the aristocrats professionalising warfare like they professionalised the fraud, it is confirmation that God is on my side. He's on the side of justice for the whole world, and we can never have the pagans back now that they're gone, but we can get their inbred and hybridized races all over the globe freed from the tyranny and the financial suppression that we find all of ourselves under. Okay? And I've also worked for the Duke of Northumberland. I would love to talk to the pair of you about ending your ancient rivalry if it's real. And I talked to your household members in the retail establishments that they have taken over recently, and all of them just want to have a peaceful and happy life. All of them are decent people. And what drives the people who demonize Islam so that these frauds can continue, I do not know. But they are placing themselves in a very perilous place, and they know that. But they are still obligated to do it, even although the instructions do not come from the centre, as they do with the Catholic Church. I better be quick or I'm going to run out of batteries. Okay, so apologies to Steve Carr, and I've talked to people in Jedburgh because Michael Ancram, the former head of the Conservative Party, is also a Kerr. I don't know how he spells himself or whether he's on these listings, but I can show you the interlocks are massive, and I'm just in the process of working my way through them. And I've gotten to a Peter Innes Kerr. I just want you to see what we've got on that original registration. And then I'm just going to let it alone. It's not a crime to have these companies, but it's slightly disappointing that they have got the companies and they've got the interlocks, but I suspected it and I knew it would be there somewhere, and I still cannot find Her Royal Highness. Yeah, that's Queen Elizabeth II. She knows I'm active in this field. She's got access to the whole of my website. She says we cannot interfere with our own government's crimes. Okay? I know, because I've been told by Gordon, that she's involved in Rio Tinto and some of the mining giants in Australia, but I cannot find which person she is on the directorates of those companies, or whether or not they've taken her down from them. Okay? But the lists here of all of the people that are involved, it took me ages to present information like this now, because of the corruption of the website. Okay, so Kerrs with one R. It's much simpler to find the Kerrs in the Aristo sector if you just put in the right spelling, which is really smart of the public schools to teach them that. Did I tell you the story? The story about the Scottish hero that was related to the Duke's first wife was that was John Jeffreys. And there's a John Jeffreys on the lists for these people and these interlocks, but blessedly, unless this is also a fraud, he was born in the 1940s. So it's not John Jeffreys. He's a really decent bloke. When he was playing for Scotland, we were in contention to be world champions, and it is really good even if he was having an affair with the Duchess, that he's spirited enough to confront the death threat from MI6. Yeah, it's really, really sad that the royals and their families are able to kill their relatives and shag them when they're children,
but the rest of society get banged up for smoking the cannabis that they run and the cocaine that they send out to Australasia in Prince Philip's light tubes. So here are the directors. I found 16 of them for Innis Care with one R. That could be Innis Car. I've become ever so apologetic to the American idiots. But Steve Carr eventually betrayed me in Dunedin, like all of the other academics. They know I'm coming, and I will make a video in a little bit more depth about that and the making of movies at the Duke of Roxburgh's castle. Yeah. I don't know how the soothsaying works, but I know they have it, and I know that they know that I was going to do this job, which is why that movie was made. Yeah, okay. Mr. Peter Inniscare, 905 74 2761. Mr. Guy David Inniscare, Duke of Roxburgh, 903 56 7389. 10th Duke of Roxburgh, Guy David Inniscare, 904 748 001. Miss Catherine Christina Mary Inniscare, BA, MA, DPhil, an educated person, yeah, been through the university system, maybe just in time not to have to pay a fee. Can you see it? Because they've got the directorships and they've got multiple postcodes with many of them. Yeah, can you see that? They are tucking it in, and that is not a crime. But to steal from your people by making the treasury inept and incapable of hosting any public funds and being leaders of society like all of these people. The Knights of the Order of Malta, they get those fancy cloaks to wear and they get to prance around, and the Queen and Princess Anne come and visit them. Yeah, that's why I want to talk. The world is in a really dangerous place because of the greed and the demonization of other nations using the religious fraud. The Duke is not religious. I saw him at the War Memorial 2 years ago, which is when he promised me a meeting, but he does not attend a church. And the woman that was the Churchill is a Jew, and so that makes the family bloodline Jewish, I'm led to believe. Whether they have a synagogue somewhere within the castle, I don't know. And I've never visited the castle as a tourist. But they are good people and they are blessedly productive employers. I do not want to crash them like Stormouth Darlin. I want Stormouth Darlin to stop cheating and running the Ponzi shelves. They don't have to close companies down. All they have to do is stop the fraud, and they get the right person for that. That's Peter Stormouth Darlin, working in the city of Edinburgh on the Aegis and all of those massive pension funds that are being crashed and are blighting the whole of our country. Yeah, the police will not lift a finger because all of them think it's really clever to be scamming the people en masse. But when G4S displace the local policemen of their jobs, then it will come home to roost that being a slave is a really hazardous thing to be, because you are a strong person compared to the people in the tweed jackets and the pinstripe suits that steal from all of society's funds. That is not you, Guy Inniscare. I know that you're better than that, and I know particularly since you had the cancer that the rivalry with the neighbours has diminished and you talk to everybody, and that is really good. I've never talked to his American wife, but it's really quite sad that because we're in such a legally perilous condition, that when the Duke dies, if he does, before his American wife does, that she will be banished from the castle and the first wife will come in. And I don't really understand the genealogy or the laws of succession, but it's quite sad that you can be with your family in the same place and the children are there,
and then all of a sudden something like that happens. That's happening in my household, but I'm using it as an opportunity to try and get justice for all of the people, aristos to slaves, all across Scotland and all across Britain, and eventually all across the world that they brutalise. Okay? Miss Katerina Christina Mary Inniscare, BAMAD Phil, 912-955482. Mr. Robert Inniscare, 901-666-391. I could give you the postcodes because there's another Derby one, southwest, and you know where all the laundering companies are, and when you look at the interlocks, almost all of them are using the corrupted companies that we've denounced in multiple videos already. Okay? But as Gordon Bowden has told me, that is not a crime because no one has ever taken it to law. That's how the banks were crashed in 2008, and it will happen again really soon unless you people make yourselves aware of who runs it. I don't believe that the Duke runs it, but because of the involvement of the children, they could have been trained in any of the corrupted banks. But that's speculation, and I should not do that as a scientist. Okay? Robert Inniscare, 901-666-391, RG247AT. Mr. Christopher Giles Inniscare, 911-041-372, GU273LL. Miss Prudence Mary Caroline Inniscare, 906-127634, GU273LL. Miss Alexander, that could be a drone coming at me. Miss Alexander Mary Spencer Inniscare. Can you see the links to the Churchill dynasty? Yeah, and they're quite close also to Lady Diana's family and the Hambros, and the Hambros are those massive banking dynasty, and also they're close to the goldsmiths. Okay, everything is, you know, when you're in the inner circle, you've got to stay there. And the Duke of Roxburgh is decent, and all of his children are healthy, and all of them are upstanding, and I hope that they are prepared to become even more upstanding and lead our nation as aristocratic figureheads back to decency. Nick Clegg and David Cameron and Nicola Sturgeon will not be their opponents. They will fall down on their knees and bow down to them and to their moneylenders. Okay? They have no spine, they have no integrity, they are incapable of leading anything to decency because they are minor thieves. They just take their retainer to desert their nation. And Cameron's just as bad. He has massive holdings as Cameron of Lochiel up in Scotland. And they've got little minor frauds running in all the papers about their brother, who's a lawyer, being involved in cases where legal aid is not paid because they've defrauded someone else who's innocent of £5 million, but because they've spent it already, they cannot afford a solicitor. I cannot afford a solicitor, and the solicitors will not give me their services because I understand entirely that they are fraudsters. None of these things being registered as a family with the name Kerr with one R is criminal. I just want you to know that I'm on to what they do now, and I will look in due course at the interlocks, and I've already looked, and it is horrific. And a lot of it takes you into those jokes about the Dell Boy books, and I've told you about the Roxburgh Book Company being the oldest book company and collection in the world, and it is owned by the joker Dame Edna Everage now. And the Dell Boy thing becomes Dell Boy Books. Isn't that funny? That you laugh at that, Dell Boy's yellow van, which is the Rothschild's colours. And then when you go to the War Memorial, you see that the factor takes the fall for the figurehead. Yeah, and the factor, who we've exposed because it's easier to find him, because maybe he did not go to such a posh public school and was unable to spell his name properly.
Yeah, it's ever so clever, and PG Woodhouse would have a huge belly laugh at that. And the Downton Abbey thing is hosted at a place very near to Derby. I forget the name of the massive mansion house there, but that is the place where Downton Abbey is filmed. I do not see a palsy in the Duke's eyes. I've got great faith in the Duke. I hope he has the courage to meet me, and that Prince Philip will not ban that. I've told you the story about repairing the carriage when Prince Philip was at the sporting event. Prince Philip's carriage was repaired. He refused to pay the bill. The Duke of Roxburgh paid it for him. That's people who are very close to me who told me that story, and they were scared shitless by the automatic weapons that the security guards for Prince Philip yeah, that's the Prince Philip that was declared to be innocent of the unlawful killing when Princess Diana went missing in the Freemasonic tunnel, which is named Lalma, the apple. Yeah, that's the joke at the woman's expense about the original sin. Okay, so we've got Spencer Inniskere 91393395565 SW19 4LP. Sir Guy David Inniskere, Duke of Roxburgh 912796558 TD5. That's us, that's Kelso. God bless you, Duke, for not tucking these things away in Delaware and having the courage to run the innocent stable and the horse racing sector from our innocent location without cover-ups or frauds. TD5 7RW. Mr. Charles Inniskere, Marquis of Beaumont 917 966 340 TW8 8JF. Now, when I found Catherine Mary, when I found the girl on the directorship that was interlocked to the man who looks like Tim Spicer at the Kingdom newspaper, she has got, I think, 300 million net worth at the bank. That's one of the Duke's children. Okay? And everybody could be prosperous if all of that were declared and all of it led to the refilling of the treasury. But I need your help, Dukes and Duchesses, especially the ones that are going to be compromised by our laws of succession. It is tremendously difficult if people just condone their own frauds, but they allow what is a democracy to be stolen from by the politicians and the money lenders that run the assassination bureaus and run all of the world wars for all of human history. Yeah, that's the money lenders that profit from both sides. Churchill's in that category, the Aitkins are in that category. I hope to God that the Dukes of Roxburgh, who are innocent, in the periods where we had religious conflict in Scotland, they stayed out of it. That was the Covenanters' War. They did not get involved. They do not worship Catholics. They do not worship as Protestants. And because of the Jewish affiliation since the Churchill wedding, I do not know whether or not they operate within a synagogue or they have any faith at all. That is also a statement about their relative innocence. Yet they're not prepared to engage in global conflicts because somebody has a conspiracy theory about a man in a turban or who's in the Islamic Brotherhood. All of it was created by the Pisos in the same elite inner circle. Okay, Mr. Charles Inniskere, Marquis of Beaumont, 917 966 340 TW8 8JF. That's also a local postcode. Mr. Guy D. Inniskere, 10029865. No postcode available. Shit, me and my big mouth. Miss Anna Catherine Inniskere, no postcode available. 911 806 768. And Miss Enid Alma Innisker 903, sun's going in, 864240, no postcode available. Lord Robin Anthony Innisker 906676, sun's coming out, 92, no postcode available. Lady, God knows everything that every individual does on this earth. I don't know how many gods there are or whether we have a monitor for everyone, but they know what we're up to. And Travis used to sing about that, but they've taken it down. Yeah, and Travis used to sing about people being persecuted in caravan of death things and being shot at by aeroplanes in England with the English War and Air Force logos on them. Yeah, and I've explained to you the Travis joke about the Paris, Texas film and how they pretend to be socialists in Scotland, but all of it is just a joke. Yeah, and all of the genocides in Latin America are just a joke too. I'm very grateful that the people at the churches now know what I'm trying to do, and all of them talk to me, including the clerics. Yeah, it is really refreshing to be in an innocent and peaceful community. None of the rest of the world get that opportunity. Lady Catherine Christina Mary Innes Kerr, BAMAD Phil. Yeah, so that's she's got a higher degree, a doctorate, 906032915. I could do with your help, Katie, yeah, to get our students back to decency and to let all of them have a mortgage and to take all of them out of the debt pool that the Rothschild Bank and Vince Cable and Michael Moore MP and Glynis Breakwell at Bath University and all of the Russell Group university leaders have cast them into. Yeah, the government actually makes the rules, but the Russell Group run the whole of that university sector, and they plan and profit from all of the wars. We've told you about the links of Oxford and Cambridge to the skulls and to all of the haberdasher companies, the city and guilds, and all of it is a massive profiteering exercise. Yeah, I just want you to know that everybody is at the trough, which is funny in the P.G. Wodehouse movies and the comedies. But it is tragic that the whole world is brutal like that for personal gain. You don't need to become communists. You don't need to become rampant Labour Party activists. All we need is a ban on any political party and just to resort to the laws of our country and their enforcement, and to the decency in the banking sectors and all of the financial services and auditing sectors that used to prevail before they got rid of all of the executives in their 40s in the 1950s and 1960s, as was portrayed in the Mary Poppins film. Yeah, it is ever so funny to laugh at Maria prancing out of the Alps and pretending to be a haven in the monastery. All of it is a massive profiteering exercise that embroils religion, all of the messianic religions, all of the aristocracy, all of the government sector, all of the policing sector, and all of the judiciary. The ordinary taxpayers are perpetual victims, and I hope that the Duke has the conscience that will allow him to become an iconic figure in world history by letting the truth out about how our democracy is actually run. Okay, so that is the last one. Oh no, we've got one more entry beyond Lady Catherine. We've got Duke of Roxburgh Guy David Innes Kerr 9033257772, no postcode available. Now, because I have not looked at those, but the sun is coming out again, there may be something more sinister there. If the sun comes out, I think not. Yeah, it's still boiling down on me. It's been like that since I discovered these things this morning, and since I began to open it up and play the poignant music about Downton Abbey. Yeah, the palsy thing is really interesting. It's affecting people that I meet in the supermarket who are politicians and former European Party members, and it's just amazing how God gives you insight into all of the frauds. You look at the skies, you look at the map of the world, and the fascist heel at the bottom of Italy, where the Connie, Lord McAlpine, died, but he's never been given a funeral by the corrupted media that condone all of the crimes in the stock market. And what I'm describing here is just a list of innocent directory registrations. I will go through them more carefully, and if some of them are not innocent, they've got the ruthless jokes in them about Dell Boy, and they've got interlocks to all of the financial dynasties, but you expect that. That is the peer pressure, and that is the peer pressure that led to the making of that movie about the hosting of a warmongering meeting at Lady Darlington's household in Middle England, and Superman made his speech about professionalising war on behalf of the American idiots, and that Superman, the actor, within months fell off his horse, broke his neck, and within a couple of years, where he was trying to save his own condition and his own predicament by investing in stem cell research. The stem cell researchers are also scamsters. They won a Nobel Prize in Lisbon for doing lobotomies with an ice pick through the eye cavity in the doctor's office, fully conscious. And then in Lisbon they launch a remuneration for spinal repair. If you break your back, it is really serious because all of your motor nerves are down there, all of your sensory apparatus. So you spend the rest of your life like Superman. The actor was Christopher Reeve. Yeah, he spent the rest of his life after falling off his horse, which is a joke about the hippos, and all of the aristocracy across all of the world laugh ruthlessly at that joke. Now that it's becoming understood, I just hope that the aristocracy will acknowledge that it is evil to laugh at genocide and religious martyrdom. Yeah, and we are adult enough and we're mature enough now to use those methods to achieve global civilization, no matter what Melvin Bragg, the thief with Klaus Moser, says about the persecution of Christianity, and no matter what they say in the Church of Scotland when they run their privatised care home and get in the pulpit and say that Islam needs to be suppressed. Yeah, all of it is the same team, and you know it now, and I will continue to denounce it until you stop it or God makes an intervention. Okay, so please, 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 if you work for the Duke, the next time you see him or any of his family, can you say that I desperately want to meet them? I'm going to sign off there, and I know that there is the capacity for innocence in all of these families. They are thinkers, they are articulate, they're very civil. Yeah, and what we cannot afford to do is to continue to brutalise our neighbours in a global context. We need to share what God gave to everyone with everyone. Bye bye.